Hello student, today we are going to talk about sound. You should understand how sound is represented and encoded as binary digit. You should be familiar with the terminology like sampling, sampling rate, sampling resolution. You should be able to calculate the file size of a sound. You should also understand the effect of sampling rate and sampling resolution on file sound. And finally, you're supposed to do sound editing software. The features of this software. What are the different features of sound editing software? There are a few links in YouTube. There are a few links. You can have these links to download further notes. At the end of this chapter, we'll tackle some exam questions. I'll give you the list just after this. So how sound is represented? Sound needs to be converted into binary into the computer. And to do this, we have to sample the sound. So initially sound is analog, means a continuously variable graph. It's in analog form. The graph varies continuously. There are an infinite number of range of values. It is uncountable. Okay. The contrary of analog signal is digital signal. Digital signal, we have a finite range of values. It is countable. They are in discrete steps. So here you can see that sampling means converting the analog signal into digital. So at a regular time interval, we'll collect the height, the amplitude of the curve at regular time interval. Let's say every second we collect the height, every second we collect the height. So the first second the height is 8 and we convert the height into binary. We can save it in digital format. So every 1 second we are collecting the amplitude of the wave and we are converting into digital format binary. So this is what is called sampling. Sampling means converting the analog signal into digital form at regular time interval. And how is a sound recorded? Normally a sound is an analog form. We use a microphone. Okay, and we record these signals in as a sound wave, an analog wave. So analog signal means continuously variable. They are smooth curve. Okay, so this is how human voice in its natural form, it is in analog form. So why does sound need to be converted into digital format? So that we convert the natural sound which is in analog form into digital format, into binary form, so that we can store it in the computer. To do this, the sound captured by the microphone needs to be converted into digital format. This is what is called sampling or digitizing the sound. So how is sound digitized? You can see at regular time interval we collect the amplitude, the height of the curve, and we write the corresponding binary code. Give the definition of sampling. What is sampling? Sampling is a method of converting analog signal into digital. Okay. Samples are taken at regular time interval. This is called sample frequency. So sampling therefore is a process of measuring the sound level at a set interval of time, at regular time interval. At regular interval, you measure the amplitude, the height of the curve. of the sound at different point of time, and thus this measured value is converted into digital format. Again, another way of asking the question, how is sampling used when storing sound? So it's a process of converting the analog signal into digital by measuring the high amplitude at regular set of time. You get an approximation. When you convert it into, and convert means encode it into a sequence of binary numbers. Increasing the sample rate will improve the accuracy of the recording, because more sample you will take, better the quality of sound will be, but at the expense of increasing the file size. Again, we look at the definition. What is sample resolution? Sample resolution represents the number of bits used to represent the sound levels. The more bits you use, the better will be the quality of the sound. And sometimes this is referred to as the bit depth. Normally, higher the sampling rate, the smaller is the quantization error. So higher the sampling resolution, less distortion will be there. And usually sample resolution is measured in bits, 8 bits, 16 bits, 24 bits, and 32 bits. So sample resolution means the number of distinct values available to encode the analog signal. So the number of bits used to encode the data for one sample. And sometimes, as I mentioned, it refers to the sample depth. What are the advantages of having higher sample resolution? It allows larger dynamic range. Dynamic range is approximately 6 times the bit depth. It increases the accuracy of the sound representation, and crisper is the sound quality. So the larger sample resolution, it means more values are available to encode the analog sound. Larger the sample resolution, this will improve the accuracy of digitizing the sound. Larger the sample resolution, it will decrease the distortion. It will increase the resolution, less quantization error. Disadvantage of having higher sample resolution. The file will be larger, bigger. It will occupy more storage, more memory. It will take longer to upload and download, and it will take more processing power to process. Why is 16-bit sample resolution appropriate for CD? So the sample resolution means bit depth. Okay, so 16-bit gives you a resolution sufficient for a good quality of sound. Higher the bit depth, the sample resolution will mean increasing the sample resolution will mean increasing the file size. Hence, less music files can be stored in each CD. So 16-bit is enough to represent an appropriate dynamic range of about 90 decibel. And 90 decibel is the maximum dynamic range human ear can hear. So there is a compromise between the quality and a reasonable file size. So the quality is reasonable enough for human ear, and the file size is reasonable. So CD normally come with 16-bit or 24 bits of sample resolution, means encoding scheme. Higher the bit rate or generally. So next, what is sample frequency? Sample frequency is a rate at which samples are taken within a given unit of time. This unit of time can be per second. Okay. Gives a definition of sample rate: the number of times the amplitude, the height of the analog wave is taken per unit time. This unit time can be per second. Higher the sample rate, more accurate will be the sound, but the file size will increase. You can attempt this question: advantages of having higher sample rate, disadvantages of having higher sample rate. What effects have lower sample rate? Fewer samples are taken at unit time, file size will decrease, there will be larger gaps between the samples, there will be more spaces between the samples, greater will be the error, the quantization error, less accurate will be the sound, so accuracy will be reduced, it will be far from the original sound, quality will degrade. Describe the features of sound editing software. So if you have a sound editing software, what are the features in it? You can edit the start time, stop time, the duration. You can extract, delete, or save part of the clips. You can change the frequency, the amplitude, the pitch. You can fade in, fade out the clip. You can mix, merge multiple sound. You can combine different sources of sound at various volume level. You can pan between the track and the channel. You can use filters. You can play back the recording. You can convert the sound into different audio format. So fading, what is fading? Changing the volume of a section of sound for it to get louder or quieter. Removes some sound track. You can select, you can delete, you can edit the track. You can copy and repeat element of the wave, sound wave. Now let's look at this question. Okay, a CD is given, is sample at 44,100 times. This is a frequency. Each sample is of 16 bits. This is a sample resolution, and each track requires right and left. So there are two tracks, right and left. Calculate the number of bytes, not bit, but bytes. And stored, the duration of the sound is 1 second. So you know the time, the duration is 1 second. So to calculate the file size, you need the sample resolution multiplied by the frequency, the rate at which the sample is taken. You need to multiply by the length of the sound, which is measured in second, and the number of tracks. The answer are usually in bits. So again, sample resolution is the number of bits used to represent the different level of sound. That is the encoding scheme. Sample frequency is the rate, the number of samples taken per unit time. The length is the duration of the sound per second. And the track, the number of tracks used. So in this case, the frequency is 44,100 multiplied by the sample resolution, which is 16, and then multiply by the length, which is 1 second, and multiply by the track, which has 2 tracks. The answer would be in bits, but we divide by 8 to get the answer in number of bytes. So it is 176,400 bytes. Next, a particular track of 4 minutes. Describe how you calculate in megabytes required to store the sound. Now again, in this case, how long? We have 4 minutes. So 4 times 60. Second, multiply by the number of bytes, 176,400 bytes. So how long we want this sound? 4 minutes. So 4 minutes is converted into second. 4 times 60 times the number of bytes. We divide by 1024 to get the answer in kilobytes. We divide by 1024 again to get the answer into megabytes. Now let's look at some exam question. Okay. I will look at some exam questions. Yes, this is a list of exam questions which you can attempt. And the exam questions are like this. June 2015, paper 11, question number 2. Gives a definition of the term sampling. Sampling means converting analog sound which naturally occurs into digital format so that it can be saved in a computer. That is, we measure the height of the sound wave, that is the amplitude of the sound wave at regular point of time. We measure the value of the analog signal at regular point of time. This is what is sampling. Second question, give one reason why 16-bit sampling is used in audio comparisons. This one we have already covered earlier. Explain the term sampling resolution. Sampling resolution is a number of distinct values available to encode each sample. It is a number of bits used to store each sample. This is sometimes referred to as bit depth. Higher the sample resolution, the smaller the quantization error. The higher the sample resolution means less distortion. Usually, sample resolution can be 8 bit, 16 bit, 24 bit, and 34 bits. Next question. Give one benefit and one drawback of using higher sample resolution. Benefits allows larger dynamic ranges. Our dynamic range is approximately 6 times the bit depth. So more accurate is the representation, crisper is the sound quality. But drawbacks is that the file size becomes larger, it requires more storage, and it takes longer to upload and download, and it requires more processing power. Describe two typical features found in software for editing sound. You can edit the start time, end time, and the duration of the sound. You can extract, delete, and save part of the clips. You can change the frequency and amplitude, and the pitch can be altered. You can fade in and out of the clips. You can mix or merge different sample sound sources. You can combine different sources of sound. You can pan tracks and channel. You can use filters, and then you can save the file in different audio format. Lossy lossless will look at another chapter, compression. This will look at compression. This one defines the term sample rate. So sample rate is a number of samples taken per unit time. The number of times the amplitude is measured per unit time. Increasing the sample rate, it will increase the accuracy, precision of the digitized sound. Increasing the sample rate will result smaller quantization error. Next, sample resolution. Next question is talking about definition of sample resolution. Sample resolution is a number of distinct values available to encode and represent the sample. It is specified by the number of bits used to encode the data for one sample, referred as bit depth. Larger sample resolution means more values available to store each sample. Larger the sample resolution means improved accuracy of the digitized sound, decreased distortion, and smaller will be the quantization error. Explain how analog sound is sampled and converted in digital format. Okay, the analog sound, we measure the amplitude, that is the height of the wave of the wave of the sound at regular time interval or per unit time. We measure the value of the sample, which is converted into binary and saved in the computer. What is the effect of increasing sample resolution? We have already discussed this one. Larger will be the range of values, larger will be the file size, more accurate will be the representation. Okay, so explain the effect of changing the changes brought on the sound. So what we are doing here, we are changing the frequency. So fewer samples, we are decreasing the frequency. Fewer samples will be taken, file size will decrease. There will be larger gaps between the samples, and there will be more spaces between the samples. Greater will be the quantization error. Less accurate will be the sound. Accuracy will decrease, and it will be far from the original sound. It will not be close to the original sound. So again, sound editing software we are talking about. You can fade the sound, that is change the volume of a section of a sound, get it louder or quieter, remove sound elements, deleting section of the sound, some tracks. Copy means repeat an element of the sound wave. This question is about microphone, how sound is recorded. Explain how different sample resolution affect the sound representation. Next is describe the student needs to edit the sound. So what are the features available in the sound editing software, and how a computer encodes the soundtrack. We have already discussed this. This one also, sampling rate, sampling resolution. We already discussed sample rate and sample resolution. Now in this case, the sample rate is given, the sample resolution is given. They are asking us to, what does this mean? So sample rate is sound wave sample are taken at 88,200 times per second. This is sample rate, means frequency. Sample resolution is the number of bits used to encode the analog sound. Okay student, I hope you enjoy the lesson. Okay, you have taken note and the lesson is useful, so please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Okay, goodbye from for now.